Hi, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One fan clubs. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm the Beatles host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the 1960s decade. So let's go. And I noticed you hesitated there, Rosa.
Yes, I was going to say fangirl. And then I went, but Luigi's a fanboy. So
And we're not gender biased here.
We're not. So I said fan group.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or fan club. What did I say? Fan club.
It's something that was unusual. But yeah, you got it. Yeah. You carried it. You invented a new term.
Yes. And you've gone for an iconic 60s band of music.
Yeah, my former number one band, now my number two band.
What do you mean it's your number two band?
It used to be my number one band for most of my life until maybe 5 years ago. I realized that I preferred another band.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask you who that is.
It's a battle. It's a battle between those two, like in my mind.
But yes, 60s, very, very iconic Beatles era, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what are we here for today, Rosa?
Yeah, we're going to do a 60s wrap up. I thought it would be like so much stuff happened in the 60s, and we thought we'd just take a moment to reflect on some of the big things that happened, and then we thought we'd do our top 5 drivers of the decade.
Yes.
We were going to do a top 10, but it was almost too easy to do a top 10, I think, because you could just put everyone in there.
Yeah, top 5 was really hard. It was hard to decide who not to put. It was really, really hard.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. So we'll just have a look at what we thought of the 60s.
Yeah. And in a way, I had TP flashbacks, arguments that we've had over the episodes. You know what I mean? But yeah, this will be fun because we have different views on some of the things. We know what we're both talking about, but other things that we just have nice memories of them. So are we going to take turns doing one special memory each and then go into our top 5?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
So,
you can start.
I was going to say women first, but then I was going to say, how do I make it better for me? Beauty before brawn. I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I'm stretching here. So
yeah, you are.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with some of the lighter ones in my list.
Okay.
And one of mine is going to be the 1961 Belgian Grand Prix, where Ferrari entered a yellow Formula One car for Oliver Genderbine. And that was, I think he was a Belgian driver from memory. I didn't go into intricate detail on this.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yellow is their colour. So they must have thought he was a real potential future driver in terms of like he's going to be the man sort of thing. Maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't recall feeling that at the time either. But we weren't there in 1961. But anyway, it was memorable to have a yellow Ferrari. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, I'm gonna match yours and say one of mine was when in 1964 Ferrari drove in blue in the US.
Ah, interesting. Yes,
that was when Enzo had a fight with his Automobile Association of Italy over a Le Mans race, I think.
Yes.
Or some other sports car race, I can't remember. And so he decided to not run in the Italian red, and instead used the American Association's colour, which was blue. So
and he did that actually in 69 won that as well.
There you go.
69 as well?
No, I don't think he did it in 69. He did it in 64 because I remember that because I was thinking, wow, they won their championship in blue.
Yeah, blue and white car, blue with white stripe, I think.
Yeah,
I'm getting my years mixed up. Yeah,
wow,
very unusual way.
Yes. So, that was, I thought I'd match that one.
That's your little, I've got another little one.
Oh, okay.
Was that your turn or was that me adding to my turn?
No, that was my turn.
Let's not get caught up here.
You go.
Okay, sorry. I don't mean to be talking over you. I think we're talking over each other. This is we're excited. 60s, the decade's awesome.
It is.
My next one was the 1961 Dutch Grand Prix. So 2 of my first ones are from 61. And only because this is one for the trivia nights, of those of you out there that do Formula and trivia nights, the only F1 race in history to have no retirements and no driver made a pit stop. How full on is that? The cars started
That
the
is
race
massive.
and they finished the race. All of them.
I think we've recently had a race like in 2024 that had no retirements, but obviously we had pit stops. So, yes, it is a big deal to have all cars finish and have no pit stops. That's amazing.
We joked about that episode, saying how the pit crew were like sitting there. In those days, cigarettes was a normal thing.
Yes.
They
Yes.
would have smoked cigarettes despite there being things of petrol near them, or oil or fuel. And they were like, I wonder if our days of work are over. They needn't
Yes.
have worried, is all I can say.
So my next one that I put in is the 1961 Shark Nose dominance. But I've also then paired that with the Ferrari walkout in 1962, whether they walked out or they're all fired or there's still a lot of mystery around that, what actually happened. But yes, I thought that was a moment to be bookmarked and celebrated, that shark nose dominance in that year. No one really saw it coming. It wasn't like part of what the new cars were starting to look like. And yeah, they dominated. But then it caused like the worst walkout in Ferrari history as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, and
yes.
that was one of mine too. And yeah, it was just amazing. It was about sexism, really, because Enzo was getting
Yeah.
his wife involved and
Yes.
these
She was
men,
sort of, yeah, didn't like it. Yeah. They didn't like
they
answering
were
to her.
interfering with their duties.
That's right. Yes. Yes. So they all worked out. And the guy actually tried to start their own team, which I think they
Yes.
launched in 1963 or 64, but it fell apart very quickly. They had nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And the event was known according to a few names: the Great Walkout, the Palace Revolt, and Ferrari's Night of the Long Knives.
Yes. It's kind of funny, that one, only because it's really attached to a very bad moment in history. But yes, yeah, that was my next one.
Yeah. Okay. My next one is going to be I'm jumping around to what I feel like talking about. So I'm jumping to
Sure.
1967. We've been in 61 a lot for some reason.
Yes.
67, the Monza Grand Prix. And this was considered one of Clark's greatest performances in Formula One. And just to recap that story, he led the race up until lap 12, where he picked up a puncture and pretty much lost an entire lap. He then spent the next
Yes.
48 laps recovering, passing the entire field, and he took the lead again on lap 60 and pulled away. And can I just say, he also helped his teammate along the way by giving his teammate a tow. And
Yes.
then he ran out of fuel on the final lap to finish third. So even though he only finished third, he basically won the race sort of twice. And the mere fact he set a record for most number of wins before he passed away, and this is the race people say is his best, is
Yes.
quite
Even though
an
he
interesting
didn't win it.
story. No, I know.
I know. Look, so that Louis, that's my number two moment. So I've got like
Oh, was it?
one sort
Okay.
of, yep. So that was my number two moment. So yeah, you've tapped into one of mine. I want to choose another couple of. I've got a lower one which I want to talk about before I don't know how long we're going to do this because we could be here all afternoon talking about the
I know.
60s.
Yeah.
But I was just going to mention the Brabham Repco decision as one that I think was really instrumental in that late 60s period for Brabham to go with a relatively unknown and untried engine manufacturer from halfway across the world. And I think they had something to do with was it the Tasman series, Luigi, or was it even Formula something? It wasn't Formula One. And for him to just go with them was the best decision he could have made in those 2 years. It actually handed him those two championships as a constructor and himself and Denny Holm as drivers' champions. So
Yeah, 4
yes, just a
championships.
shout out to Jack's leadership there.
Yeah. And I'll do a quick shout out to Chris Amon. This is not a spoiler for the 70s, but Chris Amon's star shines a little less brightly in the 70s. But he was consistently up there in the 60s. but he didn't win a race. And he was in the
I
lead
know.
so many times in the 60s. And hate to be a spoiler, but anyone who's really into Formula One already knows that anyway. And if you're not new to Formula One, just embrace those moments when he's leading, because he's leading a lot and doesn't win. So, yeah. So that's a big memory for me, unfortunately.
Well, I've got a few others. I'm gonna put these two together because they're kind of Hill related. There was some big Hill moments, and I've put Hill stopping to save Stewart from his petrol-filled car at the 1966 Belgian GP. And, Hill pretty much gave up his position in the race. And I think he was in the points. I don't think he was going to win. I can't remember exactly, but he was in the points and he pulled over and and rescued Stewart from his car, which was turned upside down and filling with petrol.
Yeah, that was a
So
big deal.
it's a big, massive deal. Exactly. And the other Hill moment I've got is Hill rescuing Lotus in 1968 after that terrible accident that took Clark's life. He really stepped up. I mean, Colin Chapman was just nowhere to be seen. He was beyond depressed at losing his best friend as well as his best driver. And Hill stepped up and just kind of dragged that team behind him, and they actually won that championship that year, and off of Hill, I think.
Okay. I would say the another memory for me would be the 1960 Italian Grand Prix, which was actually won by Phil Hill in a front-engined Ferrari, and that was the last race that was won by a front-engined car. And that was quite a memorable moment for me because that was like a changing of the guard, not the changing of the guard. It was like a technological change in all of Formula One.
Yes. We
Yeah,
did joke and say that it probably stopped Enzo from actually going into the new era because he's won with his old technology.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
And we
And
thought that's bad for Ferrari because he was holding on to that old style
yeah,
of car, and they should have like had a
yeah, he did well to dominate 61 despite that.
yes, exactly. That's why everyone was really surprised.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that particular race, another I think is humorous, is that that was also the race that those of you that remember, I mean, we're going back 10 years of episodes, which would be probably 6 months or something in our episode releases. That was the race where Ferrari, there was a British boycott of that race. So that's part of the
That's
reason why they
right.
won the race.
Yes.
And they were towing the F2 Ferraris to try to
Yes.
bring them all up
They've
into the front. They did pretty well.
yes.
They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with Ferrari
I think they got
engines.
the top 5 finishes. Yes, that was funny. They stacked the grid with all these Ferraris. Anyone with a Ferrari, come in. We
Yeah,
welcome
we'll
you
give you a
all.
tow.
Yeah.
And the British cars are not there. It's all dodgy, typical
It
of the
was.
time,
It
you
was.
know?
It was. Yes. All right. Well, I've got 2 left, Luigi. I've got my number 1 and my number 3.
I've got a few left.
So
Do you want me to do
you've
another
got a
one, then
few
you
left.
go?
Do you want to do a few of yours? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
do a couple of mine just to balance us out. So this last one, more of an anomaly more than anything else. At the 1964 German Grand Prix, there was a driver called Karel Godin de Beaufort, and that was his final F1 race. He was considered one of the true amateurs of Formula One, and the only reason I'm mentioning him is because in his early days, he was considered like a mobile chicane, a danger to other drivers on the track, but he did mature into a competent and popular competitor. But some of the things he did, the reason why I'm mentioning them is because he was a bit of a larger fellow, and he earned the nickname Fatty Porsche because he had a Porsche, he could afford the racing Porsche. And he was a rich guy, of course, with typical stereotypical aristocratic eccentricity. He often drove without shoes. And in his final race in Germany, he was even seen taking part in practice laps wearing a Beatles wig rather than his helmet. I mean, this is crazy
Wow.
stuff. It's
Okay.
just a
Now I know
reflection
why
of
you
the
like
time.
him because he was wearing a Beatles wig. Yes. Okay.
So I
Yes,
thought
that
that was
is a reflection.
a funny memory of the 60s.
Yeah. Anything else you want to?
Okay, a minor one. Well, not minor, but in 1966 in the Monaco Grand Prix, Bruce McLaren, on debut in his own McLaren car, actually qualified 10th. So that was pretty special. But then I think that's quite overshadowed by Jack Brabham doing a lot more in his Brabham. So, but McLaren's still going. So
It
that's a
is,
testament.
yeah.
And when I
I
say
think
still going, we're
that
doing this in 2025. In 2040, maybe there's no McLaren. Who knows? If someone's
who
listening to this in
knows?
2040.
Exactly. That's right. Okay, can I go on to my number 3 then? And then, so my number 3 was the Bandini and Hill incident of 1964 at the US Grand
You brought
Prix.
that up early. Okay, yeah.
Well, it was either
Go
going to
on.
be number 3 or number 1.
Yeah, yeah.
Look,
Okay, go on.
like I like it for a couple of things. I like it because it was actually a really interesting thing that happened at that race, given the state of the championship and what was happening in that race, really. I mean, Hill wasn't in contention. It was really Clark, but then Clark kind of didn't finish the race. And so all of a sudden, Hill became instrumental there. But this incident happened before Clark didn't finish the race. So it was actually really, really interesting. It was good because Bandini was a relatively new driver. I think that was his rookie year, wasn't it? Or
It
was it
was
his
his rookie
second year?
year.
It was his rookie year, and Hill had been in the sport for close to, well, I'm going to say 8 to 10 years at this stage. So it was a really good, and, Bandini was in the Ferrari. So, that caught my attention. And then just the behavior of the pits as well. Like it just had everything. It was just really interesting to read about. And I could actually, and you can watch it. It's actually on YouTube as well. So that was interesting as well. So yeah, I just loved the on-field drama of it all, but it also created a lot of drama between you and I, Luigi. So
It certainly did. And that video footage is not that great. I mean, I'd love it if they had
oh,
aerial
here we
footage.
go.
Because for those of you that don't know, maybe Rose and I have different views on this. I felt Bandini did it on purpose to help Surtees win, but Surtees being his teammate, but Rosa thinks it was a racing incident, as did admittedly Graham Hill.
Yes, he did.
But it was a race. It was an awesome race as well, with Clark going out on the last lap. That would have made him
Yes,
champion. If he'd won,
that's right.
he was one lap away from winning that championship himself.
Exactly. Yes, exactly right. So yeah, that was an awesome race, and that incident in particular was just a really great talking point on many levels. So yeah, that made it into my top 3.
Okay, I've got another one. When I was talking about the McLaren debut, which was the '66 Monaco Grand Prix, there was also a memorable moment because that's when I can't remember the John Frankenheimer movie called Grand Prix was recorded during the '66 season, and in
Yes.
'66 that's the Monaco race. They did a lot of filming, and they actually used a McLaren car painted in different colors for scenes from that movie. So it's funny that was the McLaren Formula One debut, and they also had the debut of another color scheme. So McLaren had the traditional. I think they had the British colours as well,
I think
even though
it
they were
was,
a New
oh no,
Zealand team and they
wasn't
were
it
based in
gold?
England.
Yeah. Was it the green and yellow?
Yeah, Lotus was and Brabham was. It's like, I don't know.
Yes, okay.
We need to dig more into how they look different on track, but they're
Yes.
all
Oh yeah,
based in the UK. Yeah. But it was just memorable to have that McLaren racing in the New Zealand racing colours of green, black, and silver for that movie, but not for real
yes.
life.
Not for real life, yes.
So I thought that was just interesting. And the team was called Yumura. So I think they were trying to pretend to be a Japanese team. They had a Japanese team manager and all that sort of stuff. I've got one
All
more.
right. Well, I've got my number 1. So
Okay,
have you
we've
got your
both got
number
our
1
number ones.
moment?
I wonder if it's the
Yeah,
same. What's
okay.
your number one?
Oh my
You go.
gosh. My number 1 is the 1963 Spa Grand Prix where
Oh,
Clark
interesting.
won
Okay.
that one. And I chose it because it just showed his skills. Like it really highlighted what an amazing driver he was. It was a wet race, and he ended up having oversteer and gearbox problems all throughout qualifying and the race. So he qualified 8th, and then he also continued. I think he lost a gear he lost top gear during the race as well, and it was bucketing down with rain. And I just remember that, he extended his lead during the rain, and at moments during the race when he lost his top gear, he needed to hold the gear lever in place with his right hand and move his left hand down to the bottom of the steering wheel to change gears. So it was just an amazing exhibit of his talent and skills. And he hated Spa. That was the other thing. He didn't like this track at all. It really challenged him. He thought it was dangerous. And he still won by I don't know, 4 minutes or something. So,
That's amazing.
yeah, to
It's
me,
fun. And that was 63, wasn't it?
yes, it was 1963. Yep.
Well, it's interesting that you've picked a rain race because my number one was that was an amazing race. He had a dominant 63 season. Like he won 7 out of the 10 races, which is an awesome record at the time, which is now being beaten, of course. But I was going to talk about the 68 German Grand Prix where Stewart won, and that was one of his greatest wins. And he won by over 4 minutes. That was at the Nürburgring, and Stewart described the race as teeth-gritting effort in his autobiography, and this is what he wrote about that first lap. He said, "Visibility is so pathetically poor, I can't even see Chris's car in front of me." That was Chris Amon. "I'm simply driving into this great wall of spray. I pull out to pass him, but the spray is dense and I'm driving blind." Now, yes, he did have wet weather tyres that helped him, but gee, he was in another class to win by 4 minutes and just dominated that race. And he acknowledges it as one of his greatest ever wins as well.
Interesting that you chose a Stewart moment of the 60s there, Louis.
Yeah, interesting.
As your top. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, what a surprise.
I'm going to, yeah. Oh, well, that was good. Yes. So I guess if anyone is listening to this and some of those moments has captured your attention, go back and listen to the episodes because they're actually really good to relive these races and these great moments. So we might leave it there, Louis, for our 1960s recap. We'll come back in episode 2 and talk about our top 5 drivers of the 60s that we've each listed.
Get ready for some controversy.
Yes, absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Bye.